Live. Okay,
Yes.
here we are. I just see the sign. We are live. Welcome, welcome everyone to our Saturday Unlimited Network Mastermind, dedicated to conscious entrepreneurs. This kind of spirit that is open to understand the laws of the universe and creation, manifestation, that allow the pool of expansion that life, as far as I understand lately, and I surrender to it, is always expansive. And the thing is to expand in a natural way and to don't have to, to let go if we want, this consciousness of effort and struggle and limitation and fear. So how are we working? Well, first I want to say that today is Saturday, August 6th. Already we're here in the middle of summer. And, this every Saturday that we get together, for me is like a drop of water, like doing the opening the path, for me to integrate, to embody this right, the right to have it all, the right to be part of this cosmic truth, when there is no limitations, and we know it mentally, but the question is how we can align ourselves with that true nature that we already are. And that's where I come in here with this beautiful book. Thank you, Doc Fran, for suggesting it at one point, when we started. But the Abundance Book from Lawrence Crane is amazing because it is in a very, let's say, intelligent or easy way to understand and to apply the truth of our true nature, So at the end, the idea is simple to say it, but my gosh, we can release a lot. And every topic that this chapter of this book is inspiring us to explore is more and more released. And today I'm especially very excited because we are on the chapter that is all about worry and mind, and we are going to explore today, this attachment to thinking or aversion to thinking. And we keep dancing on that level, thinking. So I expect to understand deeper, how safe it can be to let go of the attachment and identification that we have with mind. And just to say two things before we start, remember that the release technique is based on detecting what it is that you are experiencing, feeling. The guidance here is to, allow your body, so it's forcing you, supporting you to be in your body, that can only be in the book. In some way is really supporting our awakening and to practice and be in the moment. And every time that you do that, you apply it to your body, if the situation or the question of the book, or now I'm applying to every situation in life because I detect very quick, oops, I'm contracting here, or I'm like, anything, so I stop for a second and I check in to see what's going on with Monica, and I open the window that is to go out through the window, through my body, through my consciousness, okay, to go out back to source, to let it go, to release, okay, that's the release technique. And one of the things that is very interesting to me is that the ability, the book is guiding us to detect three important, let's say, sources or pillars of suffering, and one is the wanting approval. That is something that I get now that I don't know, like is really part of my life, like many moments that I feel, let's say, disturbed or upset or contracted or something is going on. I go inwards, and I can detect, gosh, here I'm really wanting approval. I want to be seen. I want to be approved. I want to be loved, So that's the wanting that we can release. Another wanting that is often, but not so much an approval for me, but is the wanting control. Many of us, we learn how to control everything so we can have a false sense of safety. But that's the only thing that we know. And thanks to this book, we are releasing, this false sense of self and opening up to our true self, to our true nature. So we have the wanting of approval, we have the wanting of control, and then we have the wanting of security that there is very often appearing also in my consciousness, and I just very gently and loving I'm getting very familiar with these three wantings that are the expression of our egos, our fearful selves, you know, the separated one. And when we release all of that, we can be more in alignment and embody our true nature here that is, you know, based on ease and love and beauty and harmony, I mean, and divine inspiration and action. So, I mean, let's be who we truly are, okay? Great. So this is the little introduction today to get in touch with what we are doing. And we are going to continue our book on one. I don't know how much you love this number, but I do love it. 111. And it's all about attachment to thinking. And waiting for Doc Fran just 1 minute here, I just want to let you know, all the people that are seeing this now live or after in the recording, remember that you can always ask your questions, and if you want to be on the panel, you can email Arne, A-R-N-E, at unlimitednetwork.com. And also to share this with your friends, send them to unlimitednetwork.com/mastermind. They can register for this, or they can see the videos that we have there, and all of this is for anything that we offer. You know, you teach what you need to learn, so here we are all supporting each other to grow in this dimension. And my vision is to be an how to say to offer an impact to my world, you know. So I want these worlds to see the prosperity and the safety of having it all in an easy way, and that begins with me at home here in my own heart and my own consciousness. And I really see that we can change our world one by one from the inside out. So welcome everyone. And Doc Fran, if you are ready, here we are talking about thinking. I cannot hear you, Doc Fran. What happened? Candace, can you open your microphone to see if we can hear you?
Good morning, everybody. The sun's just rising and hitting me in the face.
Nice. Well, I can hear you, and I was hearing Doc Fran just 1 minute ago. Let's say we can fix that. And
I can't see him.
Candace, do you hear Doc Fran when he talks? No. Okay, thanks. That's interesting, because 1 minute ago we were really chatting and talking and celebrating our time together here. Yeah, but doesn't look like the audio is off here. So, well, meanwhile, I want to share with you. I will log. Yes. Perfect. So we wait for you, Doc Fran. But meanwhile, I just want to, and maybe open the microphone to you, Candace and Arne, to see how, you know, what was your experience last week with the release technique, if you had the, you know, the opportunity to use it, because to me it's like, it's amazing. It's like I detect, you know, every second, like if I judgmental, you know, like something that I'm pushing away. It's interesting to see like that comes from my own wanting approval. I mean, I'm amazed with the technique, you know, of the release, and how simple and how often we can apply it. And it's not like you have to be in meditation half an hour or whatever. It's like it's in 30 seconds, you know, the willingness to let that go, for a second, to detect, you know, what is going on here, and then to, you know, to detect these three pillars that I was talking before, the wanting control, or the wanting security, and to give us permission to want that. Is really our journey of awakening, you know. To love doesn't mean to like, or doesn't mean to indulge or anything like that, but to love our moment, to detect what is the source of that, knowing that it's not our truth, be willing to let that go and jump in. Let's see if we can hear Doc Fran right now.
Hello.
Yes. Welcome. Woohoo!
Well, I don't know what to think about that. Electronics, they baffle me sometimes. So anyway, well, thank you. I'm sorry about that, folks. And we're really up to this. This is a long and important chapter here. So let's just jump right into it. We're on page 111 here in chapter 17, How to Rid Yourself of Worry. How many of you would like to have the ability to never worry again? Man, I'm telling you, that would be a spectacular accomplishment if simply by itself. So let's get on. We're talking about the things that cause us to worry, and the next one we're going to look at is our thinkingness and attachment to thinking, stream of consciousness. Just let your mind think of things about the attachment to thinking. Write it down and see what you wrote and thought of as wanting approval, wanting control, or wanting to be safe and secure, and then release the want. So there's a little exercise here. There's 3 lines, 4 lines. What advantage is it to me to think? So let's take 2 or 3 minutes in silence and write our thoughts on that subject. What advantage is it to me to think? All right, who has some thoughts on what advantage is it to me to think?
I do. Can you hear me? It helps me prepare to get ready for something, and it helps me be aware of the possibilities that are in a certain situation or topic because I've considered it. Gives me time to consider other people's viewpoints and respond accordingly. And it helps me feel ready, and that increases my confidence when I feel ready in certain circumstances. So, but I do realize it's a habit, just a habit of thinking, because it's perfectly possible to spend time not thinking and just having a lovely open mind and experiencing the moment. I'm complete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Interesting. I love it. Well,
you're muted.
What? Okay, so me, in quotes, and I went deeper inside, and I really touched, the wanting security. It's so funny. So I opened the window for, 10 seconds or 2 seconds. I don't know the time, but I mean, just, oh wow, like wanting security out. And then I detect also what advantage it is to me to think, and is to communicate with others, thanks to thinking, I can communicate verbally and whatever. And I went deep inside to see where is this coming from. A chart that, by the way, I recommend all of you to get familiar with this chart only because there is so many emotions that I don't have a clue that they existed, you know. And it's helping to detect what it is that I'm feeling, okay? So this one, I went to communicate with others. I think that's pretty healthy, you know, whatever. But at the end, I went to the last column here that says acceptance, you know, and then you go up, oops, here, let's say, and you see that the source of that is wanting control. Nothing wrong, nothing right. It's just, you know, to detect, you know, like, are we, you know, safe in this empty, eternal beingness that we are, or I keep, you know, holding on something. So through the mind, I think I see it. And again, I went back to let go, open the window to wanting control. So that's my journey here. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, the first thing that comes up there, I think there are two kinds of thinking. There is deliberate thinking and there is unconscious thinking. And in my case, I probably spend in 99%, well, 95% in unconscious thinking. And it's when the thoughts are just running, and I get to feel like I'm in control with that, and I also I don't have responsibility, because that is something that is fate, or it's not my responsibility. It's something that runs my life that I don't have the power over, and it controls, and I can let I let that take over, and it I don't know exactly, but the deliberate thinking is that the advantage of that is then I can direct what I'm going to into the future. Like Candice was saying, you know, I can prepare for something. I can even focus on, you know, I think I want a new car. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into the world of a new car. If I didn't do the thinking, I would just be haphazardly, you know, floating around like a cork on an ocean and not knowing what will happen next. I think that's what I have for now.
Well, excellent. Yeah, all good thoughts. And I wrote down, and it's interesting, Arnie, my first one was, it gives me a sense of control. So obviously that's a wanting control. It gives me a sense of power over the future. like I could actually exert some control, but it still gives me a sense of safety or security over that. It allows me to make, quote, good decisions. So that's approval, wanting approval. And finally, it makes me feel smart, which again is approval. And so, you know, by thinking, we allow ourselves to remain in the illusion that we are in the mainstream with everyone else. So, and taking control of my life. All right, what disadvantage is it to me to think? What disadvantage is it to me to think? Take a couple minutes and let's write down some ideas on these lines. All right, I think it's interesting that they gave us 5 lines here, so I see that as a clue. I don't know, just me. So, Candace, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, again, I go back to it only being a habit, and the disadvantages are when the thinking is dead-end thinking, or it's looping the same thought over and over again, or it's tied into some emotional situation that I am simply perpetuating by thinking about it. There's times when it's really non-productive. So I think that I put that under lack of control. Yes, I'd want control, but I don't have it, and I'm not aligning myself in a way to, anyway. It's also safety and security. All of them at some point can be all three, approval or safety and security. But I really want my own approval. I want to be happy with myself, so that non-productive thinking can get me into self-judgment and all these other things. So it's, what do you call it, self-fulfilling prophecy or something like that. It's a pain in the patootie, really, if I do that. So nice to have options.
Thank you, Candace. To me, the first response that I had is like this connection to source. You know, like I go by my own, like whatever. I don't, you know, it's not like, and I'm talking about the thinking process. How to say, not the inspirational one that can come from silence, the automatic, right? And I detected for me was wanting security, holding on into this me in quotes, you know, like, oh, give me some sense of security. Then another disadvantage that I found is like it's exhausting, you know, wanting control. And then another one is a power struggle, you know, like mental, how to say, like to dance on that realm of thinking for me is really, you know, like who is right, who is wrong, arguments, like, oh my, exhausting. And again, I want to open the window to let go, wanting control. And this is, I want to share a story. Like when I met Arne, I didn't speak one word in English, and he was not speaking Spanish. So we were like absolutely not mental engaged at all. It was, you know, sensing, and it was beautiful. It was a year for me to develop it. We were driving all across the United States, you know, beautiful, everything, and suddenly I catch myself arguing something in English. And I stopped right there, and I look at Anna and I say, oh my gosh, here we are, you know, like I learned English enough to start to engage mentally, and was a huge difference, you know, like I started to really be opinionated and to put out, you know, all my mental whatever, and I would say, you know, to release it probably, you know, after 20 years of being together, that we are doing much heart-oriented approach, you know, than the mental addiction that we had at that time. But I can see, looking back, you know, how mental, you know, I was there, and how mental I keep being today, but how easy it's for me to let that go. So I just want to acknowledge the progress here, you know, of being, you know, when you say be happy, don't worry, well, easy to say, you know, but yes, you can bring awareness to that, you know. So it's very powerful to experience that. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, excuse me. The disadvantage of thinking. So this weekend or this last week, I was teaching a workshop, and then in my mind, I'm setting up the room and the chairs, and then I'm setting up the room and the chairs. And I'm just screaming to my mind, I already know that. I already have it planned. I don't need to be thinking that again. And it was so hard to not just repeating the same tape, same recording in my head of the plan. So a disadvantage is really that is tiring. Can be very tiring to hear the same story going on, and again automatic answers. Another disadvantage is that is wanting control. Yes. And then the other disadvantage is I don't live in the now, because when I'm thinking, I'm not actually having an experience. Thinking and experiencing are not simultaneous experience. So when I think, I'm not in the experience of being alive, having sensations. So that's a disadvantage, because life, in my opinion, is through experience. And I'm also not productive. If I'm not thinking, I'm not productive. So that's an advantage, I guess, of thinking to be productive. And I need that because of approval. I guess I should have moved that over to the first one. So thinking of approval, needing to be in control. If I'm not in control, by guiding my knowing what's going to happen, knowing the thinking, then my unwanted things may happen. So I'm not in control. So I'm letting go of the need of control.
Well, thanks. I'm still smiling at the image of this Spanish woman and this Swedish man riding in silence across the United States, falling in love with each other in whatever language. Who cares? I'm sure there was plenty of sign language going on. So
experiences.
So that was a beautiful story. The first thing that hit me right away with this is that thinking prevents allowing. And you know, I think we've all discussed, but maybe you know, I know that for myself, I haven't mastered the art of truly allowing things to happen. And we all know that nothing happens till we find the vibration that allows it to happen. We cannot manifest anything that we're not a vibrational match to. So we create these artificial vibrations through thought that all we're doing is preventing ourselves from literally allowing what we want. So that's a control issue. You know, allowing is the opposite of controlling. Isn't that interesting? And very, very huge insight to me on that first line. Second one, it promotes a false sense of security, which of course is safety and security. It promotes a false sense of control, which is again safety and security. It often leads to, quote, bad decisions. You know, so we make a decision that's actually at the time appears counterproductive to our intended path. And finally, thinking promotes worry. How else can we worry if we're not thinking and thinking into the future? And thinking into the future is all based on fear. And we all know the primary acronym or explanation of the acronym FEAR, and that's false expectations appearing real. So we project unpleasant events into the future, they appear real to us, and we generate worry over that, thinking that we can prevent that from happening. The other definition for fear is future events appearing real. So as we think, our mind does not know the difference between imagination, imaginary, and, quote, factual observations. It's all the same to our mind. So if we think into the future with false events appearing real, that in itself is the very essence of worry. So I think that's why they gave us 5 lines here, because there really is very little advantage to thinking. See, I told you, I'm very happy being fat, dumb, and ignorant, you know. And ignorance is bliss, they often say. So, all right. So what advantage is it for you to think? Does that bring up
Can I say something here?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm talking. Now
one is,
their talk.
you know, animals. Okay, now we're talking. Animals, they don't think about the future. So that's the difference between us and animals, that we can worry. Animals, I guess, don't worry. They maybe protect, but they don't worry. The other important thing, I think, is your first point, Dr. Fran, thinking. That thinking, we need to be in tune with the vibration of the thinking to be able to create. And in my opinion, I think there is a huge thing that we missed, all people, in the word of thinking. The word of thinking is actually 2 things, and we didn't even realize it. So when we talk about thinking, we think we think in statements. We think in the form of facts, the thinking process, which is called questioning. And that actually appears before the statement part. And when we do the questioning, that's how we get into the vibration that create what we want to create. But most people spend like 99 or 100% in the statements category, and therefore there is no change in people's lives. The only way they can change it is if they start to question what they are stating. So I think I don't know. Maybe we need to let go of attachment to questioning as well. I'm not sure, but for sure we need to let go of the attachment today. For now.
Well, that was very insightful, and it has caused me to sit here and think about it. So, all right. Candace, did you have something you wanted to say?
I think not.
Spoken like a true Shakespearean thespian. All right, well, that's it. To think or not to think, that is the question. So, all right, let's move on here. What advantage is it for you to think? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, a wanting of control, or a wanting to be safe? Now, whichever want it brings up, could you just let it go? Whether it's the wanting of approval, control, or safety. Now, what disadvantage is it to you to think? Make something up. Use your imagination. Does that bring up a wanting of approval, a wanting of control, or a wanting to be safe? And whichever want it is, could you just let it go? Either the wanting of approval, wanting control, or the wanting to be safe. Now, what's another advantage of you thinking? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, a wanting of control, or a wanting to be safe and secure and to survive? Could you just let go of any or all of these wants and more and more and more? Now, it's interesting. They just added a new word to us. And you have to excuse me. This is my mother's nursing home. Don't go away.
Okay. Are you thinking now?
I like it. I like it what you said, Candace, into
Okay. Monica, you can finish your thought. You have to open your microphone for us to hear you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't think it's very important, so don't worry. I just wanted to make sure that we were keep going here, but that's okay. Keep going.
All right. Now, imagine never ever being able to think. Let go of clutching or resisting the feeling it brings up in your stomach or chest. Keep releasing until there are no more feelings in your stomach or chest. Never ever being able to think. Could I let go of my entire attachment to thinking? Keep letting go until you can say yes 100% with no clutching or resistance. And again, I want to point out for those of us that are, or those of you that are listening to our mastermind or watching it on the web here, these are not just questions and sentences that we simply read. They are literally calls to action. They want you to do the action that you just read. And if you're new on the call, releasing is an imaginary process or a process, a mental process, in which we can feel the emotion, usually in our abdomen or our chest, and we open up an imaginary window, recognizing that that emotion is energy in the form of thought energy, and we simply let it go. We offer no resistance to those thoughts or that energy. And by releasing that energy through this imaginary window in our stomach or chest, we can rid ourselves of the energy associated with it, which causes us to worry. Interesting. Came right down to the word again. All right. Now, taking a look.
Doc Fran,
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me say just to share one thing because I think can be inspirational for all of us here. You need to mute though. Yes, thanks. When you said imagine never ever being able to think, okay, the first thing that I thought, interesting, is like, oh, what a relief, you know, like I love it. But the truth is my body, solar plexus, I felt like a huge contraction right there, you know. So I don't know, I just want to share that, like, yeah, my mind can go on in the thinking or whatever, but what is my energetic response from, you know, attachment to thinking? That probably is what is showing up. I didn't have the time to explore, but I have to explore that more, you know. But this, if you want, like, my mind goes one way, but my truth, you know, my truth experience was, you know, in my own solar plexus area. I wanted to highlight that because too. Thanks.
Well, I love that phrase, energetic.
I also had a,
Go ahead, Marnie.
I also had a huge response there, and about feeling stupid. I mean, if I don't think, I will feel so. My whole body just reacted to that, and then I see that boils down to needing approval and control. But I had a huge response to if I'm not thinking.
Wonderful and very interesting. But as I was saying, Monica, you used the phrase energetic response, and we're gonna come back to that because you know, thoughts are energy, and we all know from our physics, even basic physics, that everything in this world is energy, even those things which we perceive as being solid objects. They're nothing but accumulations of energy that are perceived in that form. So the energy is what, interestingly enough, of course, is the vibration. So you're right at the essential core of what makes us who and what we are. And so I want everyone on the call now to start thinking in terms of the energy that they perceive with their thoughts. What is the energy of your thought? Is it a high energy thought? Is it a low energy thought? And let's start to link subconsciously that perception of energy with the true vibration that you are emanating, which I think will give a huge clue to all of us about what and why we are manifesting in our lives from minute to minute. Does that make sense?
I'd just like to add one thing. I had an experience just now of that, in that particular releasing of just a wide plane inside my mind getting swept clean. And it was just felt good. No mind.
Well, thank you. And that rekindled a thought that I had when Arnie was talking about questioning versus statements in our thinking. And, you know, questioning is a key and critical ingredient to directing our thinking. And along those lines, the questions that we should be focused on are who, what, where, when, how. And unfortunately, well, I'm going to drop how off of that list. Who, what, where, when. And unfortunately, most of our thinking immediately, or our questioning immediately, goes to why or how, which then throws us into worry or thinking to give us the illusion of control. So the two questions that we should avoid, it seems to me, the two categories of questions to avoid in our thinking are the why and how. The why is probably not readily known to us, and perhaps for good reason. And the how, we already know, is not our job. The how is Source's job. It's the universe's job. So it's fruitless questioning to ask anything in those two categories. What would the panel think about that?
Well, I actually wrote a book. I did. I wrote a book, 13 types of questions. Be aware of your questioning habits because they can ruin or create your life. And it's a small book. You can find it on creativequestions.com. So it's quite a good point there, Doc Fram, with the different kinds of questions give different kinds of results, and not necessarily what you maybe want to by your choice. So if I because it's such an important topic and it's been not noticed in the world, and everything that's going on with everyone is based on questions, and TV programs, news, everything is based on questions, but usually bad questions. So or even just useless questions like how are you doing, or what's the weather like? Well, you can say what makes me happy. Now you get to different kinds of questioning. Well, God makes me happy, or my mother makes me happy, or So there's different kinds. 13 kinds, and I don't think I can get into them in detail right now, but people can find out more about them themselves.
Well, excellent. Thanks. All right.
Yes.
Good. Monica, go.
I just want to say that to come back to the topic, like for me to surrender to this, that I could let go of my entire attachment to thinking. Okay, it's like it's like I detect, like, consciously I'm very willing, and I think that's what I do, my meditations and whatever it is. But unconsciously I have a lot of remain, like attachment to that illusion, that my thinking is going to bring me safety, control, or approval or something. I just like to see the how to say, the difference, between how my conscious mind can go in one way and how my unconscious mind keeps stuck in here, into the belief system, old belief system that I'm ready to let go, of course. But it's interesting to be aware of it, So I love that. And then what you were saying, Arne, about the questions, I think it's such a deep topic. Like you said, it's good to go to creative questions that come and, play around, because it was a wonderful inquiry that Arne had for many, many years. And I think it's very powerful to understand that when we choose to think consciously, let's say, is incredibly empowering. And to be aware that our creativity works through, and when we apply it, and when we are the victims of it, or when we are the the masters of our creativity, so creative power. So I think it's very important. Thank you for that creation, Arne.
All right, excellent. Well, as always, we're having some very, very creative thinking here, and I think of real value to ourselves as the panelists, as well as to our listeners. And so let's move on, and I think we'll probably just finish this section on attachment to thinking today, and then save aversion to thinking for next week. So, taking a look at automatic thinking. Now, let me just talk a little bit about the process of thinking. We're learning how to master our minds so the mind becomes our servant instead of us having to listen to it all the time automatically. And that's what we're doing. So I'm not suggesting that we do not think anymore. I'm suggesting that we master our mind and its thinking ability, so we can be in charge of the mind instead of the mind being in charge of us. One of Lester's favorite movies was 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you remember the movie, the computer called HAL 9000 took over the spaceship and killed everyone aboard in an attempt to take over Keir DeLeon, Dave, the remaining astronaut, was almost killed, pushed out of the spaceship by HAL. Somehow or other, he crawls back into the ship. Then the computer HAL starts talking to it. Hold it a minute. You need me. Who's going to run this spaceship when you're sleeping? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I didn't mean to kill the other astronauts. But Dave keeps walking toward the computer and pulls all the tapes out. And HAL goes quiet as the tapes are removed. Then Dave takes over the spaceship. And basically that's what happens with us and our minds. We forget who's in charge. We don't have to listen to all that worry and all that negativity and stuff like that. We can master our mind and let it become our servant instead of the other way around. So by having discrimination about thinking, we get clearer and we know in which direction we should move. With this in mind, let's continue examining our thinking process and examine the mind and begin to master it by pulling out its tapes. Advantage to thinking. So what advantage is it for you to think? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, or safety? Whichever want that gets stirred up, could you let it go? And what disadvantage is it for you to think? Make something up. Use your imagination. Could you see that as wanting approval, control, or safety? And whichever want that gets stirred up, could you just let it go? Could you let go of wanting approval, control, or safety? And what's another advantage to thinking? Does that bring up a wanting of approval, control, or safety? And could you let any of those go? What disadvantage is there to thinking? Does it bring up a want of approval, control, or safety? And whichever want gets stirred up, could you just let it go? And what's another advantage in thinking? Could you see that as a want of approval, control, or safety? And could you let go of any and all of those things? Keep going back and forth until you are clear on any advantages and disadvantages, then move on. Now, what happened originally is the mind was supposed to be used to be our servant. It was supposed to help us remember names, faces, places, and various things like that. Instead, it kind of took over, and the servant became the master of the house. Now what we are doing is taking back control. We're taking charge so that you'll be able to adjust what your thinking is, what to use it on, and prevent terror from it. You won't have to listen to it in a negative way, and that's what we're examining. So imagine never, never, ever being able to think again. Now, put your head down and see if it brings up an unwanted energy, a resistance, a clutching, and just allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through. Imagine never, ever, ever being able to think again. Put your head down, let that energy come up and allow it to pass through. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just phenomena or energy passing through. Now imagine never, ever, ever being able to think again. You've lost that ability. You might be experiencing something again about how. The example I told you about from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Check against ARG. Oh, I don't know. I don't understand that. Please don't unravel me about stuff like that. Just let the energy come up, take charge, become the master, and let the other energy go. All right, so let's go back to that little phrase, check against orig. Or I guess means origin. I don't know if that's a typo. It doesn't make any sense in there. So let's just ignore that and not get stuck on that. So I'm going to read this through without that. You've lost the ability. You might be experiencing something about how, the example I told you about from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Please don't unravel me about stuff like that. Just let the energy come up, take charge, become the master, and let the other energy go. Candace, do you have something?
No.
Oh, okay. Imagine never, ever, ever being able to think again. Put your head down. See if there's any resistance or clutching and just allow the energy to come up and pass through, and more and more and more. And could you let go of your entire attachment to thinking? If you have a resistance to saying yes, put your head down and allow that energy to come up and allow it to pass through. Notice how you feel. Are you feeling clearer and lighter, less confused? You're not feeling stupid, are you? Can you see you're getting clearer and clearer? I'm suggesting that you master your mind rather than having it master you. Could you let go of your entire attachment to thinking? See if it brings up an unwanted energy or resistance to saying yes, and just allow it to pass through. And more and even more. And keep releasing until you are clear. And have no more clutching when asking the squeezing the lemon questions. Then move on. All right. Well, I had a lot of cognitions during that last little reading and paragraph. So let's hear what the panel had to say.
Well, Monica here. I just want to say that I need to work on this like during the entire week, I think, because every time that I hear you saying ever, ever, ever again, is this dichotomy, you know, between what I relive, you know, and like shit, you know, like complete loss of control, you know, it's really, it's amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, then, you know, who am I, or whatever questions come up. So excited, let's say, to keep that window open and to inquire a little more, you know, like let's see we can do this week, so next week we are more ready for the next inquiry about the aversion of thinking, but to feel free, you know, like we are equally, that we are not our thinking. You know, this is what I'm realizing right now. I really know it or whatever, but there is a lot of subconscious here, you know, like it's very identified with the thinking, you know. So I love to have the opportunity to let go of that, to release it. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Arne? Candace?
I'm
Well,
appreciating.
I did have a big reaction. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay, I'll talk.
There's a delay apparently.
Yeah, and then being in control. Like, no, I don't want to give up. I'm gonna lose all control. Then I have no idea anymore about anything. So that was a strong reaction, and I need to let go a little bit more on that.
I'm thinking about when we let go of something, we need to replace it with something equal to or better. And so when I let go of thinking, what do I want to replace that with? And what I find myself doing is just experiencing longer periods of internal silence and openness. And you know, then I kind of almost don't notice when it goes away, because the thinking is still subtle and it's still it just begins again. So I see something different and a thought comes up about it and I don't notice it. So it's really taking the time to learn to allow myself to experience something different and stabilize in that new experience. So I'm enjoying that process. I feel like that this work, when we let go of thinking or worrying what's in its place, it's something that feels quite nice. And I like the feeling that once it's gone, it's gone. I don't feel like things are coming back and have to be done again and again and again. This releasing technique is quite excellent. I'm loving it.
Well, you know, thanks. Again, the things that occurred to me in this reading is that, like everything else in our life and our universe and experience, nothing is intrinsically good or bad. It simply is. And so thinking is neither good nor bad. It simply is thinking. The trick, it seemed to me, and I got a different viewpoint on attachment to thinking. And the attachment is to the automaticity of the negative thinking. We know we're actually trained from birth to operate in fear. And so an attachment to thinking causes automaticity of thinking, which is largely negative thinking. And so the key here, it seems to me, is our ability now to recognize instantly when we start down a negative think path and to stop it. And I loved Candace's comment on going into the silence or into no thinking, going into absence of thought, deliberate absence of thought, quieting the mind. And those are the two, it would seem to me that the two optimal states with regards to thinking are positive thinking, which is a high emotion, high energy, high manifestation form, high vibration form of thought, or no thought, silence, which brings peace and enlightenment. So, man, it really, this is like a major, and it seems once you encounter that awareness, God, doesn't it seem so simple, and yet it eluded me for 70 years. So thank you. That's for each of the three of you, and I'm totally blown away by what just happened in my universe.
This is becoming being, not doing.
Okay. Exactly. And to get comfortable with that, for sure, is a switch of consciousness, you know. So I just appreciate that we are doing this together and supporting all of us here in that journey. And again, it's really about letting go who we are not, you know, in our truth, and to allow that to shine through us when the more we let go. I want to complete the session today just by empowering us here to take the time to keep, you know, facing this, like what happened if I ever being able to think again. So we don't think from attachment, we don't think from, you know, from the automatic place that we normally think. Let's see how we appear next Saturday. But next Saturday we get together again, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember that you can always find this information under unlimitednetwork.com/mastermind. And we put our Facebook post to remind all of us here and to celebrate this time together. A wonderful release week, and see you next Saturday. Thanks.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you. Bye. Candice,
We are live.
no?